So I thought I'd start this morning because one of the questions I get asked quite a lot is, how do you know what to buy? Okay, so when I decide to use a selection of papers, I start with a common denominator of what I buy. And then when I've got it and I've seen it, and because I sell my books, I see how popular they are, then I will up the ante and buy more. But I always have a starting. Now, up until this collection, what I've always done is I've bought one 12 by 12 of the decorative papers, one 12 by 12 of the patterns and solids, two 8 by 8 pattern papers. I always buy the ephemera. I love the ephemera. And I always buy, and this, you can see I bought two of these, I always buy the rub-ons. Now from this, as long as I don't go mad, and as long as I, think about what I'm doing, I can get two 8 by 8 books and possibly a third 6 by 6. Sometimes if I do a lot in a book, I won't get that third 6 by 6, but I can reckon on getting two 8 by 8s with that possibility of a third 6 by 6. So that has always been how I've done it. However, this time Graphic 45 have changed things slightly. So their 12 by 12 collection includes the decorative papers, but it also has 4 pages of patterns and solids, and you get 2 of each of those. So it's a slightly bigger pack. You can buy the patterns and solids in a slightly different American size, which from the top of my head, I can't remember. I think it's something like 11.5 by 8. But if you look on Paul's YouTube, Paper Crafting with Paul, he's actually got those and he'll tell you what the sizes are. So this time I've just bought one of the 12 by 12 collections because it's got the patterns and solids in it as well. I've bought 2 of the 8 by 8s, and they include, again, some patterns and solids. So the difference is, I think you used to get 3 of each of the pattern papers. Now you get 2. So you get 2 of the 8 decorative papers and 2 of each of the patterns and solids. So you get the patterns and solids in the 8 by 8s as well. So I haven't worked it out. I'm not very good at thinking about the money side of things. I haven't worked out whether it's, cheaper or more expensive, but it's one 12 by 12 collection pack, 2 8 by 8 collection packs, the ephemera and the rub-ons. That's my starting point this time. So it'll be interesting to see what I can get out of that. Usually to decorate a few boxes as well. So I'm going to put that on one side. I also usually start with 30 pieces of A4 card to make my books. Depending on what I do, I may need more. I never need less. So, but my starting point is 30 pieces of A4 card. So I'm not actually going to make the book yet. We'll do that later on. But what I want to do today, as I say, is the double back gatefold card. So for this, I'm going to need 3 pieces of A4 card. The first piece, is just going to be my base page. So I'm doing this slightly differently to the way I normally make my books. So normally I would make up my book and I would cut all my base pages. But because, as well as doing it on here, I'm also going to be doing it at my work group, my workshop group, I'm working slightly differently to my usual way of working. So I'm not cutting out all my pages in one go. So I'm going to start by cutting out my actual base page. And that is going to be 7.5 by 7.5. So 7.5 by 7.5. Let's put those pieces in. So that's my base page. That and you'll see this in more detail as we go through. That will go on to the first leaf of my book, which will be, oh, I've got that wrong, that should be 7 3/4. Right, okay, boo-boo number 1. Ignore what I've just said. It should be 7 3/4. I've got it written down here as well. So ignore what I've just said, and it's 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. So 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. Okay. So that will go on to the actual page in the book, which will be 8 by 8. So that's how we make the 8 by 8 book. So 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. I'm then going to cut 2 pieces of card, and I'm going to cut them at 7 3/4. Get it the right way around this time. 7 3/4 by 8 1/4. So I'm going to cut this to 8 1/4. So it's 1/2 inch bigger than the page I want. I just need to get another piece of blue card. Okay. So 7 3/4 by 8 1/4. So the 2 pieces that are 7 3/4 by 8 3/4, I'm actually going to do a bit of scoring on. So scoreboard, right there. So I'm going to have it landscape, which means the 8 3/4 is at the top. When it's so close in size, just remember it's the 8 3/4 at the top. And I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch, and that's going to be my glue tab. And then I'm going to score it again at 4 3/8, which is half of 7 3/4. Okay, so same again, 8 1/4 across the top, so it's landscape, 1/2 inch for my glue tab, and then 4 3/8, which is my halfway mark. So two pieces at 7 3/4 by 8 1/4, scored at 1/2 inch and 4 3/8, 1/2 inch and 4 3/8. Next thing I'm going to do is on this 1/2 inch, I'm just going to mitre that off. So I'm cutting from my score line out at a slight angle. So I'm cutting a little triangle off, like so. Just get rid of those bits. There is actually a pin down there. I'm not just throwing them on the floor, although they do usually end up on the floor. And then I'm going to fold this. Now, I know I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I'm using 290. So always fold it before you start to, always bend it rather before you fold it and score it. Because otherwise it might crack. So I'm really giving this a very, very good burnish because I want my page to lie as flat as possible. So I'm going to do that to both my glue tabs. So taking it out. Really giving it a good burnish. You can't burnish enough. Okay. And then with this one, I'm going to take it back the other way. So I'm doing a valley fold. Now, I want this to be absolutely exact. So I'm just gently bouncing it like that. And then I'm going to turn it over, bounce it a bit more. What I don't want is this not folding exactly on the fold. So, and then I'm going to start squeezing it from the middle out, from the middle out. So if you are using a thicker card, you do need to just have that little bit more time before you give it a good fold, where you're just creasing it and breaking those fibres. Because what you want is that to be an exact half. Believe you me, I don't always get that. So I'm just going to do that. And do that. And I will probably burnish it again and again before we do it. So same on this one. So your fold is under there, your glue tab. So this is going back on itself. So just gently bounce it. Start to break those fibres a little bit. And when it gets the idea of where it's going, turn it over and just very gently work from the middle out to the edges. And you can feel those fibres breaking. When you're happy that it knows where it's going, you can start to squeeze it with your fingers. I'm just going to check I'm not missing any comments. No, that's fine. Okay, so there and there. Okay, so it's tidy. I put those things back. So now we're going to put those pages onto our 7 3/4 by 7 3/4 piece. So what we want is our 2 glue tabs, and for this to meet as much in the middle as we can. Okay, accuracy is all well and good if you can do it. Okay, what I am going to do before I do that, I normally cut my card using my Caterpillar, but it's too big and bulky to do it on screen. So I've used my trimmer, and with the trimmer, you do get a rougher edge, or an edge that sort of comes up, which you don't get on the Caterpillar. So I'm just going to see if I can just lose that little bit of an edge, if I can. It's all about making the final thing look professional. So that feels better. That just needs a little bit more. So if you use a Caterpillar, you won't get that slight ridge. If you use a trimmer, you will. It's a good thing just to run a burnishing tool over that. So I'm now going to put my glue onto this glue edge. So I'm hoping my glue is going to work, because yes, it is. I haven't used it yet this morning, so I wasn't absolutely certain it was going to work. Okay. Now I want it to go exactly on the edge. So I'm going to line it up on one corner, line it up on the other, and then I'm just going to run my finger along that edge. And while I'm running my finger, I'm also running my thumb. So I'm keeping it absolutely flush to the edge. I'm not pressing hard at the moment. I'm going to double check, because it's not absolutely on the edge, which is why I'm not pressing hard, because I do actually want it to go right to the edge. And it's particularly important with this because you want it to meet in the middle. So it's worth just taking that little bit of extra time to make sure it's absolutely on the edge. Then open it, hold it in place while you open it, and just press it down, which warms the glue up and pushes it into the fibres much more successfully. So that's the one side done. So again, being really careful. So I'm going to put my glue on. I'm going to line it up with that other one and then bring it into place. And if I am lucky, look at that. Now that never usually happens on the live. Those of you who watch my lives regularly will realise nothing ever goes to plan, but it really has this time. So I've got a slight gap there, but that's okay. So I'm just going to burnish inside there. And that is the actual page made. So obviously how you decorate it is down to you, but I'm going to show you what I've chosen to do. Now, one of the things I want to have a play with, because I do actually want something that shows how you open it. And I tried something the other day and I wasn't that happy with it. So I've taken the Cool Cats tabs, and what I'm going to try and do is fold them back on themselves. So normally the tab would come out like that, but that's not going to work because you're going to have a spine in the way. So what I wanted to do was work out if I could just have it so that it goes that way. So when you pull it, it will automatically pull up and then you can pull out. So I'm going to have a go at that. So I've folded it in half there and then I've folded it back on itself, and I'm just going to burnish that. Now I did one, a practice one, and I put magnets there and there, which was fine, but this still flapped. So the magnets didn't really work. I am going to use ribbon for this one, and I'm going to stick that onto there, but I do want it at exactly halfway for the decoration that I've done. So I'm going to get my strips. This is 7 3/4, not 7.5, Sarah, 7 3/4. So I'm going to put my alignment strips on and I'm going to mark my halfway. Okay, so if you haven't seen these before, they go up in increments of 1/8 and they have centre markings. It just makes life so much easier. And so I can see where my half, oops, a little bit of glue inside there so that I can glue the whole thing together. Oops. So I want to glue the whole thing together. Actually, I can still do it like that. Yeah, I can still do it like that. So I'm not going to glue the little flaps together. Ignore me. And I'm going to put that like so over my halfway mark. Okay, and then fold that back. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. So I've got another one. Morning, Ali. Morning, Ali. Thank you for your lovely comment. That was really sweet. Thank you. I'm going to glue those two circles together, like so. Ooh, yuck, duck, duck. Okay, such a mess with glue. And then I'm just going to put a little bit there and a little bit there. And I should have marked my halfway before I did all that. So I'll just very quickly mark my halfway. Like so. And then pop that on there and just fold that, whoops, make sure that is properly on. any bits hanging over the edge. I can avoid it. And then fold that back. Okay, and I will decorate those at the end. So, now ready to do the decorating. Now, obviously, you know, do however you feel with whatever you've got. But you will need 8 pieces of paper measuring 7.5 by 3 5/8, and it genuinely is 7.5. So 7.5 by 3 5/8. And you will need 1 piece of paper at 7.5 by 7.5. So we're going to decorate these front panels. Now I've had 2 ideas for decorating. So I'm going to do some belly bands. Look at these lovely papers. They're just gorgeous. What I've got to decide is whether I want the belly bands on the front, or the other thing that I'm going to do is some photo slots. Now I think for this I've used Patterns and Solids. So as you can see, it's just red on the other side. The reason I liked this is because I can actually get 4 out of, with a little bit of care, out of 1 piece, because they are 7 3/4. No, they're not. They're 7 1/2. I am going to get that right. And each one is 3 5/8. So I was able to get 3, and then because it's non-directional, I was able to get a 4th one out of the top. So I got all 4 of these out of 1 piece of paper. I couldn't do the same thing with this one because it's directional, but what I have done is I've used the other side of it for the belly bands, and I'll show you what I mean. I think I am going to go with a belly band on the front, like that. So I have been round the edges of all of these. So I'm going to pop this onto here. So I'm going to pop that one onto there. And I'm absolutely making sure it's centered. I could use my centering tools, my corner tools, to get it absolutely centered. If I was doing something like, I've just recently finished a wedding album for somebody, then I would take that extra little bit of time and do that. And then I'm going to put that one on there, and I want to line it up exactly with the top. Now, if I had an ounce of common sense, I would have tried to make that pattern look. Oh, you silly Billy. You've chosen the one and done it in the wrong direction. Okay, so you might want to consider, I'm not going to do it now because I can't, paper piecing. So you might want to consider not doing a silly thing like I've done, but actually finding a pattern piece that goes together. And that pattern piece actually goes with that. Look at that. How ridiculously daft was that? Okay. If I had used that, I could have put that there and that there. But I don't think I can get this off cleanly enough to do it. Let me just see. What I want is a corner. I might. I don't know. I don't want to spoil it at this stage. The glue is still quite wet, so it is a possibility. Okay. This is the thing with lives. I don't think as hard as I usually do. Well, I do, but I'm thinking about what I'm saying more than I'm... No, I'm not even going to try it. Okay, you can. You can make sure that your papers match. Oh, I'm really disappointed in myself. But there we go. So... Oh, Ali, that would be so lovely. We meet every Thursday at Meeting Point House, and we meet from 9:30 till 12. So are you still in your blue sling then? Oh. So I'm going to put that one on there. That's taking a long time, isn't it? So that's going to go onto there. That's going to annoy me now, but there's nothing I can do about it. Okay. I have to admit, at 3 o'clock this morning when I was thinking about doing this, I was thinking I must make sure I put the pattern together, and I didn't. Okay, so what I've cut here, now I've used Cool Cats to do this. You don't have to. I've said if you want to do the belly bands and you haven't got the Cool Cats or any other belly bands, you just need to cut yourself 4 pieces of 7 3/4 by 2 inches of the card and 4 pieces of 7.5 by 1 3/4 of pattern paper. That's if you want to do belly bands. I am using Cool Cats belly bands. Now they do a lot of different designs. I've chosen this one because I just thought it just fitted with what I wanted to do in terms of the pattern. So you get the card and it's decorative, and you get the paper and it's decorative. So when you cut the longer pieces, these pieces, they don't have an end, so you can have them as long as you want. I've just cut them off at their mark, but I will need to cut them properly. So what I want to do, and this is where I'm going to use the die again, the die has a little centering bit. So I'm going to place it back into the die, and I'm just going to mark that centre and that centre. So I'm using the dies to mark the centre point. I'm then going to get my 7.5, and I'm just going to mark, so I go to about here, I think, and I'm just going to mark my 7.5. So if I was sensible, I'd mark where I want to put this, roughly. So I'm going to mark it there. You can always rub it out. Okay, and I'm then going to get my smaller ones, shown here, and this paper is 3 5/8, so I want 3 5/8, and I'm just going to mark my centre here. Okay, so but the first thing I want to do is work out, because I am going to have to take some of this off because it is too long. So I want to work out where I'm going to take it off. So I'm going to take it off there and there. And to save me the fiddle of doing this every time, I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to cut that, and then I'm going to do it on the others. So line that up, cut that, and also, because I've got the centre markings somewhere, there, I'm going to mark the centre point on that one, so that I don't have to keep doing it. Same thing again, there, there, mark the centre point, so, and then the final one, line it up, against centre point. Okay. Now I'm going to measure the papers, the decorative papers. And what I've done is I've used the back of that. So again, in effect, although I've had to use 2 pieces, I've actually used quite a lot of it. So I'm just trimming those that little bit shorter. So there and there. And then they will fit onto there. So I've just got a bit too much of a pencil mark there, so I'm just going to rub that off. So I'm going to do the same with the others. And I've already been round all of these with my ink. So I'll just do these as well. Just do it like this, it just saves measuring each time. And the last one. Like that. Make sure it's lined up like that. So I'll get rid of all those bits in a moment. Quick drink. Okay. So now you can put that onto there. So I won't do all of these because it's a bit boring watching me do all of this. So I'm going to pop that onto there. And there is a little embossed mark on there so that you can see. Oh, that's just squirted out lots of glue. You can see exactly where your mark is going to go. Okay. And then you've got a little decorative piece. Now what I'm wondering is whether to stick with the orange. Okay, decision for you to make. Stick with the orange or put the turquoise on top. Oh, morning, Carol. Good morning. How have I missed out? Oh, you're out of your sling, Ali. Good. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So you can see, morning, Carol. Lovely. Thank you. There's lots of you watching this morning. That's brilliant. I think I'm going to stick with the orange rather than contrasting it. So it's going to go onto here. So do I stick with the orange or do I alternate and go with the blue? I don't know. Now I've put it on the blue, I think the blue. Okay. Sometimes you just have to test it out. So I'm going to pop that onto there, like that. And then I'm going to pop that onto there. So this is literally just a decorative piece, but it does just finish it off. So that's going to go onto there. Now, I'm not going to with this one because I want it to lie flat, but you can actually put that onto foam pads and it does lift it and make it look really nice. So can I find, oh no, it's on here. It's on here, it's on here. There's my centre point. There's my centre point. So now I know that that is pretty much centred. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue on that side, a little bit of glue on that side, centre it up, and there you go. And that is your belly band. And then when it's dry, you can slide things underneath there. So I will do a belly band on there and there. It's where to put the other belly bands. I think I'm going to put the other 2 belly bands on there, because if I had used my noddle, these would all match up. I'm wondering, oh look, that matches there. I know that one's not going to match up. No, that one's not going to match up. But I have at least got one matching one. So I would stick my other one there. Now, you don't need to put anything on these panels if you don't want to. But I am going to put the belly bands on. And I shall finish it and take a photograph of it so that you can see it with all its belly bands. Okay, so I want the 4th one on there. Yeah, I think so, Denise. The blue does tie in. Yeah, I think the blue ties in. If I'd have done it and stuck it on without putting it onto the blue paper, I'd have gone orange. But I think once you actually show it in situ, you can see that actually the blue does look nicer and does tie in. So when I put those other belly bands on, which I will do, you will see how that works. But we've also got to put something there and there. And what I've chosen for that is just some Cool Cats Photo Slot Circle dies. So again, you know, that's an optional thing. But I'm just going to put some of these on. So I have cut all the circles ready, because you don't want to put the panels on without the circles, because you can't see where they're going to go. So we've got one there, one there. So we've got lots of space here for photographs or bits and pieces of memorabilia on the belly bands, in the belly bands, I should say. So I'm just going to do that, and that's going to go on there, but I am being very careful to line it up. Even though I'm talking at the same time, I am trying to be careful. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same with this side. So I'm just going to, with my ink, just to get rid of the white edges. But I thought that that was just going to be really boring, watching me ink in edges. So I did all that before we came on this morning. And then the 4th one is going to go there. I'm just going to go around the edge. I think I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm not, but Tonic Studios are now selling those glue guns. Which is really useful, because I know everybody asks me about them. It's just, if you have arthritis and you do a lot of crafting, that's what I'm trying to say, that is a really useful tool. Okay, so with the rest of the belly bands will go on there. I will decorate those. Those are going to have to flip over that way. So then they'll just pull out like that. Fantastic. So, very excited. Right, so now I've just got my inside page here to do. So again, I've got my piece of paper, and I managed to get this out of the rest of those 2 pieces. So I was really pleased. I feel I've been quite frugal. Now what I've got to decide is whether I want to use that side or that side. I am going to use this side. You'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to use this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find, so this is 7.5. I'm going to find my centre point edge here. And I'm going to mark it. And then I'm going to find my centre point here. And I'm going to mark it. And then I'm going to find my centre point here. and I'm going to mark it. If you haven't got these, just get a piece of card to the size you want and fold it in half. And then I'm going to get my trimmer and I'm going to line up that to that. Make sure it's lined up, and I'm going to cut that corner off. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. So there to there. And I'm going to cut that corner off. And then I'm going to stick this piece into there like that. What I am going to do is just get rid of those white edges. A little bit of ink. Okay, so I'm going to stick that down like that. So I found 3 of the centre points. Ah, fantastic, Denise. Yes, so the glue guns you can now get from Tonic, and Denise thinks you can also get them from Amazon. I know to begin with there was only one supplier you could get them from, but you can now get them from everywhere it seems, which is really good. They hold the Tonic Nuvo Deluxe glue. That's what they were designed for, I think. So I'm just going to take off my pencil marks. So, okay, just pop that to one side. Now I've got a couple of scrap pieces of card. What I need to decide first is, oh, that's the wrong way, that goes that way. Whether I'm going to stick with the orange again. What I really wanted to do was, yes, I'm going to go with that, because that just pulls that whole thing together. So I've got some scrap blue card here, and I'm just going to lay that on and glue it on. Again, I've used the trimmer and I've used it with the paper the other way, so I do just need to smooth out that edge a little bit. And you can see it makes such a difference when you do it. It's a silly little thing, but it really makes a difference. And I'm just going to put some glue, some glue onto there. And I'm just going to glue that onto that corner. Okay, so that's going to go onto there like that, and then I'm going to trim that. So I'm just going to take that, line it up as best I can, and this is where a trimmer is, because is better than the Caterpillar, is what I was trying to say, because I can actually see exactly where to cut. So that's one. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm just going to go over that edge like that. And just pop some glue. I keep saying glue, blue on it. And I'm just going to pop that on that side. So, like that. Okay, and again, I'm just going to cut that. Sorry, I can't talk and think at the same time. So I'm going to pop that in there, line the edge of that paper up with the edge of that ruler. Oh, my eyes have gone. Right, that's it. There we go. And then bring that back in. That's going to go there. That's going to go there. So with my thumb on the hypotenuse, the long edge, I'm going to put a bit of glue on these edges here. Glue that one into place. So make sure you don't go over the fold. And then this one, you're going to do the same, making sure you line it up. So a bit of glue, thumb where you don't want the glue to be, and there's no possibility of getting it in the wrong place. And I'm just going to line that up, that one, nice and neatly, like so. So when I've got the rest of the belly bands on and I've decorated my little circles, the last thing I'm going to do is get some tape, run some tape. Now this time I do actually want the tape to be properly centered because I want it to go over those little circles. So I'm going to get my 7 3/4, 7 5/8, 7 3/4, and just mark where I want the tape to go. I'm going to do it both sides because I'm not the straightest taper in the world. Okay, so then I'm going to run to there, like so. Just gone a little bit over the edge. That's it. And then I'm going to get some blue ribbon. Now you don't have to do this bit, but I just would prefer not to have them flapping around. You could use magnets. So making that as straight as I can make it. So it should go nice and neatly over the top of those flaps, which is what I was looking for. Which again will help hold those flaps down that way. Okay. And then trim there and there, and that is your page complete.